All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are taking a deep dive into the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Oh, yeah.
We've got their 2022 Church Manual.
That's right, their official rule book.
It's amazing. This thing is packed with details
Yeah.
on how this global organization actually functions.
Exactly.
So think of it like a roadmap to understanding their beliefs.
Yeah, their practices from, everyday life to the big picture.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
The section on membership caught my eye. It's not just about, signing up and showing up on Sundays.
No, not at all. Becoming a Seventh-day Adventist is a serious commitment.
Really?
Yeah. The baptismal vow alone covers everything from lifestyle choices to their core beliefs about the end times.
Hold on, end times?
Yeah.
Are we talking, like
Well,
they think the world is ending?
it's a little more nuanced than that.
Okay.
They believe in something called the Great Controversy.
Okay.
This cosmic battle between good and evil that's been going on.
Oh, wow.
And they see the church as playing a key role in the final events of this battle.
So they're not just waiting for the apocalypse. They're actively, preparing for it.
Absolutely. It really shapes their worldview.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
So you make this big commitment when you're baptized.
Right.
But then they also talk about rebaptism.
Yes.
Why would someone go through that again?
It's more common than you might think.
Really?
The manual actually outlines a few situations where rebaptism is an option.
Okay.
Like if someone converts from another denomination
Right.
and they want to reaffirm their commitment within the Seventh-day Adventist framework, they might choose to be rebaptized.
So it's not just about, correcting past mistakes,
Right.
but it's also about deepening your commitment.
Exactly. It can be a personal decision based on a renewed sense of faith or even just a desire for a spiritual fresh start.
Wow, it's a lot deeper than just a ritual then. It seems like they have a process for everything.
They do.
What happens if somebody moves?
Oh, okay.
Do they have to start all over?
Not exactly. There's a formal membership transfer process.
Oh, really?
It's fascinating. These letters are only valid for 6 months. And there are procedures for just about every scenario you can imagine.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, imagine someone moves to a remote area where there's no Seventh-day Adventist church.
Right.
The manual outlines how to handle that.
Oh, wow.
And make sure that their membership is maintained even in unusual circumstances.
So they've thought of everything.
They really have.
Okay, let's shift gears to leadership.
Okay.
This section on governance and leadership is huge.
It is.
They really emphasize choosing officers carefully.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about it. These leaders are responsible for guiding the spiritual and practical affairs of the church.
Right, but it's not just about being a good person.
Right.
They have specific qualifications too, right?
Absolutely. The manual outlines qualities like moral fitness, sound judgment, and even financial responsibility.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Financial responsibility for church leaders.
Yes.
Why is that such a big deal?
Well, think about it. Transparency and accountability are crucial when you're dealing with finances, especially in religious organizations.
That's true.
This requirement ensures that leaders are managing funds ethically and responsibly.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Okay.
So we've got all these different roles: pastors, elders, deacons, deaconesses.
Yes.
What do these folks actually do?
Each role comes with a specific set of responsibilities.
Okay.
But the overall emphasis is on working together and serving the needs of the church community.
Working together as a team.
That's right.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The manual mentions former pastors without credentials.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
It refers to individuals who were once ordained as pastors, but for various reasons no longer hold those credentials.
So a pastor can actually lose their credentials.
They can't.
How does that even happen?
Well, there are a number of reasons ranging from disciplinary actions to personal decisions that conflict with church teachings.
Wow.
It's a complex issue.
That's fascinating.
But what's interesting is that these individuals can still serve as elders.
Oh, really?
But their authority is more limited compared to credentialed pastors.
It's like a balance between grace and accountability.
Exactly.
That definitely raises some questions.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a story behind every rule in this book.
There is.
We're only scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
But it's clear that the Seventh-day Adventist Church has a deeply structured system.
Uh-huh.
But how does all this structure impact the individual experience of being a member?
That's a good question.
That's what I'm really curious about.
We've seen the rules,
Yeah.
but how do they play out in the lives of real people?
Well, stay tuned because in our next segment, we'll be digging deeper into, okay, so let's dig deeper into what it actually means to live as a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
The standards of Christian living section, that's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Right, it's like their guidebook for how a Seventh-day Adventist should actually live their life. It covers everything: personal conduct, relationships with the world around them.
It's pretty comprehensive.
It is.
What are some of the key things they focus on?
Well, one of the biggies is reverence for God.
Okay.
And it's not just about, being respectful during church service.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating an attitude of awe and respect for the divine in every aspect of your life.
So it's not just outward actions.
Yeah.
It's got to be like an inner transformation too.
Absolutely. It's about aligning your thoughts, your words, your actions with God's will.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget about the Sabbath.
Right. Sabbath observance is huge.
It's central to their faith.
It is a day set aside for rest, worship, spending time with family and community.
So no checking emails on Saturday.
They're pretty strict about avoiding work or activities that distract from the sanctity of the Sabbath.
How do they manage that in today's world? It's always go, go, go.
It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
But they see it as a way to disconnect from those everyday pressures and reconnect with their spiritual core.
So it's about finding a different rhythm.
Exactly.
It's not just about rules.
It's about creating space for spiritual growth.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Now, they also talk a lot about health and temperance.
Right.
Is that just about what you eat, or is there more to it?
It's definitely broader than just diet.
Okay.
They believe that caring for your body is a spiritual responsibility. So they promote a holistic approach to health, abstaining from alcohol, tobacco, addictive drugs.
So clean living is important.
Yeah, they see it as honoring God by taking care of the body he gave you.
But is there room for, a glass of wine with dinner or a cup of coffee in the morning?
They do emphasize temperance in all things,
Okay.
including caffeine, certain foods.
Right.
But it's important to remember that every religious group has diversity. You'll find a range of practices, even within the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's about principles, not rigid rules.
Right.
Striving to live in a way that aligns with God's will for their well-being.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then there's this idea of modesty.
Yes.
Is it just about clothing, or does it go deeper?
It's definitely more than just outward appearance.
Okay.
They do have guidelines on dress, but modesty is about humility, avoiding anything that draws attention to yourself.
So inner character over external display.
Exactly.
Well-
Living a life that reflects simplicity and humility.
Speaking of simplicity,
Yeah.
that's a big one in the manual.
It is.
They really stress a life free from extravagance or materialism.
Right.
How do they reconcile that with living in a consumer-driven society?
It's a tough one for sure.
Yeah.
But they see it as a crucial part of their faith.
Okay.
They believe material possessions can distract from spiritual growth. True happiness comes from connection with God and others.
So it's about experiences and relationships over acquiring things.
You got it. They encourage mindfulness,
Right.
thinking about the impact of their choices,
Yeah.
living a life that reflects their values.
They also have a whole section on modern media.
Oh, yes, very relevant today.
It seems like that's something they take seriously.
They're very aware of media's influence
Yeah.
on our thoughts, values, spiritual lives.
So is all TV bad, or is it more nuanced?
It's more about being conscious consumers.
Okay.
They want members to think critically about what they consume. Choose media that uplifts and inspires.
So use media as a tool, not let it control you.
Exactly.
All right, we've covered a lot. Reverence, Sabbath health, modesty, simplicity, media.
Yeah, we have.
It's a pretty comprehensive view of how they believe a Seventh-day Adventist should live.
It is.
But what about the more complex issues?
Right.
Specifically marriage and divorce.
That's where things get interesting.
Yeah, and that's where we'll pick up in our next segment. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to tackle a topic that I think is pretty sensitive.
Yeah.
We're talking marriage, divorce, and remarriage.
Definitely a lot of strong opinions about these topics.
Right, so let's start with marriage. Where do Seventh-day Adventists stand on that?
Well, they believe that marriage is a sacred lifelong commitment
Okay.
between one man and one woman ordained by God.
Okay, so then where does that leave divorce? Is it ever allowed?
So while they consider marriage to be an ideal,
Yeah.
they also recognize that sometimes things don't work out.
Right.
You know, human weakness, painful situations can lead to marital breakdown.
So it's not always a happily ever after.
Right. And adultery is considered the primary grounds for divorce.
Hmm.
But even then, they strongly emphasize counseling and trying to reconcile before separating.
So it's not a decision to be taken lightly?
No.
Not at all.
They want to make sure every avenue for healing has been explored before a couple splits up.
That makes sense. What about the person who wasn't at fault in the divorce, the so-called innocent party?
That's where things get a bit more complex.
Oh.
The manual says remarriage is allowed in some situations,
Oh.
but they really encourage talking to a pastor to make sure the decision aligns with church principles.
So there's some flexibility depending on the situation.
Yes, they recognize that life is complicated.
Right.
Applying these principles to real-life situations requires careful thought and pastoral support.
So it's not just black and white.
No.
They try to balance their beliefs with, the realities of people's lives.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gone from membership to leadership to lifestyle choices, and now marriage and divorce. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. It's been quite the deep dive.
What stands out to you the most from all of this?
I think for me, it's the level of detail and how interconnected their belief system is.
Yeah.
This manual really reveals a well-thought-out worldview
Right.
that impacts every aspect of a Seventh-day Adventist's life.
It's not just about going to church on Saturdays. It's about living a certain way.
Exactly. It's about aligning your life with what they believe is God's will in all areas.
Yeah, from what you eat to how you spend your money to how you act in relationships.
Right. It's like a blueprint for values-driven life.
Yeah, it's a blueprint, but the question is, how does that blueprint actually work in real life?
That's the fascinating part. This manual gives us a peek behind the curtain.
Right, an insider's view.
But it also raises even more questions.
Like what?
Like, how do these rules play out in the lives of actual Seventh-day Adventists?
Yeah.
Are there different interpretations? How do they balance individual freedom with the expectations of the community?
Those are great questions. We've only just scratched the surface here.
We have.
There's so much more to explore about the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Definitely.
So to all of you listening out there, we encourage you to keep digging.
Yeah, keep learning.
Think about what we've discussed today. Does anything resonate with you?
Right.
Does it challenge your assumptions? And how does their approach to faith compare with your own?
Good questions.
Keep diving deep, folks. You never know what you might find.
And don't forget the little details.
Would you?
Like the unleavened bread for communion.
Oh, yeah.
It's a small thing, but it shows their commitment to tradition and symbolism.
I love those little details. That's what makes these deep dives so fun.
Absolutely.
All right, until next time, keep exploring and keep asking questions.
See ya.